Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable, or on the Facebook event page for episode 148, the Anti-Masonic Party. Let's see. For me, introductions. My name is John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957, in Fairfax, Virginia. And I'll hand it off to Worshipful Jason Richards.
Hey, John. Hey, everybody. Jason Richards here, Worshipful Master of Vacation Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
With your first stated in a couple days.
First stated tomorrow.
Wow, time flies. Well, good luck. Don't screw it up.
I will endeavor not to do so. We don't have the district deputy official visit until next month. So hopefully I'll be out with a kid and I'll just make my senior warden do it.
Speaking of those district deputy guys, Robert Johnson.
Hey, it's RJ, the past master of Waukegan Lodge number 78 in Waukegan, Illinois. And as John alluded to, a district deputy for a First Northeastern District in the state of Illinois. Host of Whence Came You Masonic Podcast. Thanks.
Represent. Thank you. And last but not least, Juan Sepulveda.
Good evening, everybody. Juan Sepulveda of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in sunny Kissimmee, Florida. Winter never came. And the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry Podcast.
Thank you, Juan. And as a reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by MasonicRevival.com. If you like Masonic swag, and who doesn't, I know I do, go to MasonicRevival.com and check out all the cool stuff that Edgar Alejandro has on his website. And if you like free shipping, you can get it there too. Just use promo code TMR at checkout for free shipping. And he's on Amazon. So if TMR doesn't work for you, I don't know if there's free shipping on Amazon. I haven't checked. But,
Prime.
He is Prime.
All of his stuff is Prime eligible.
There you go. So he's in a warehouse near you. So isn't it about time for Masonic Revival?
It is, John.
Yes, it is. Let's get to our first Masonic news tonight. Our first article comes to us from our friend and brother Tom Acousti of, let's see, let me get the picture up here. On Reddit, popular site. As you may recall, we do have a subreddit on Reddit called /r/Freemasonry. Tom Acousti posted that Brother Apathy makes the front page. And so who is Apathy? Or more importantly to the Connecticut Freemasons, who is Chad Bromley? Chad Bromley is a rapper in your neck of the woods, RJ, and he goes by the name Apathy. We've talked about his Grand Leveler song in the past, and we also talked recently about his upcoming 2017 album,
Widow's Son.
So while, it depends on which side of the fence you've been on. Some guys out your way, RJ, have probably sat in lodge with him. I know he's a very contemplative Mason as well. So he really thinks about the esoteric aspect. So you get a lot of that in some of his verses. And I can only imagine 2017, his new album coming out this year is going to be full of that stuff.
He does not look the way I thought he would. I will leave it at that.
I've had the I guess I would call it the privilege to just text back and forth. We've tried to connect on the phone a few times, and his lyrics, when it comes to Masonic stuff, when he strings what he does together, is nothing short of extraordinary. I mean, if you don't like hip hop music or rap music, that's one thing. And I mean, I'm pretty eclectic myself, so I listen to all kinds of things. And I mean, the guy is really talented, and all I can say is that the album that's coming is going to be great.
Yeah. And I saw some brothers on the internet get their aprons in a bunch with the fact that like he uses foul language in his music.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, like this is this man's career. Like he's an artist. Like if I paint a bare-breasted woman, you know, are you gonna hold it against me? I'm an artist. Like that's what I'm doing.
Sorry.
You know?
Sorry, Juan, you can't paint boobs because you're a Mason.
Yeah. You know, from breast.
What if they were man boobs?
Hey, that's pretty popular in Freemasonry.
True.
No, you know, I think
chill.
there's some people out there who do, you know, they feel that, you know, you cannot Nick had a good way of putting this at one point. He's not here tonight. I wish he was to articulate this better, but guys confuse Freemasonry with a religion. Like they they hold Freemasonry to a standard that it shouldn't be held to. I mean,
they hold it sacred and inviolable.
Yeah.
And that's, you know.
But to somebody like Apathy, who's using some, you might have some profanity in a song or whatever, that's the style of the type of music that he does. You know, if you don't like it, don't listen to it.
It's like the folks that don't like Masonic memes.
It's a true story. Yeah, and if you don't like bare-breasted women, don't buy any of Juan's paintings. So.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but like, and just to make a point clear, in the Winding Stairs Freemasonry group, I exhort the brothers to express themselves in a respectful manner and avoid profanities while they're posting. That's a different scenario. It's like I curse when I'm in the green room. The brothers know I can use foul language here and there.
He's
but
pretty bad.
Yeah, but it's an appropriate place. You know, it's like I'm with my friends. Maybe I'm gonna use a Spanish or English expletive. I can, you know, I'm bilingual like that. But when we're trying to communicate and be persuasive with our points and try to use rhetoric, it's like you lose respect when you use it. However, for a rapper to go clean lyrics and try to make it into the mainstream music, that might not be the best career move. So we can't hold it against him that he uses foul languages in his albums and still is publicly proclaiming to be a brother.
He's not DC Talk.
No.
Ooh, did I just date myself there?
Oh, and one more thing, if I could, on a post from Brother Hodap, a brother kind of made a snarky remark in regards to language, and among the eloquent and very well written response from Brother Chad, he writes, if Robert De Niro was a brother, you'd probably trip over yourself trying to shake his hand at the door and take pictures, but you wouldn't have an issue with him saying MFer in his films. And that is such a perfect point to present, because it is the truth. Like here we're looking because maybe we don't listen to the medium of hip hop, or for whatever reason, we're trying to keep the two separate. But I thought it was a very good example to knock down the argument.
Absolutely.
Owned.
There you go.
PWONED.
Owned. Let's see. Next topic is Arkansas's holiday surprises. According to Chris Hodap's blog, yet even more drama is coming out of the Grand Lodge of Arkansas. Now, this thing is pretty messed up. Now, I've seen there is a fake. Yes, there's fake news out on the internet. There's a fake Grand Lodge of Arkansas Facebook page. It's hilarious, by the way.
Is it run by the past bastard?
I don't know. We should look into that. So that's because there's satire out there, and these guys are hilarious because they go into a couple things, but you can tell one of the guys is an Arkansas Mason because he's letting out some things that have changed, and I know that it corroborates with this story that Hodap has posted. Now, just over the holiday weekend, upcoming in February is Arkansas's Grand Annual Communication. We talked about those a couple episodes back. What happens at a Grand Annual session, right? A Grand Annual Communication. Well, Arkansas is coming up. Now, we know that the Grand Master has expelled past Grand Masters, has expelled Grand Line officers, taken their picture off the website, whole shenanigan of things. Well, it gets worse because of the death grip, apparently, allegedly, that this Grandmaster has. He has taken it upon himself to make some other things happen such that the control of the Grand Annual Session gets swayed in a certain way. What do I mean by that? There's three major factors that get covered here that have changed this year than previous years. For example, if you, as we talked about in our Grand Annual Communications episode, if you are the master of your lodge, you are a voting representative at Grand Lodge. If you can't make it, you normally have a proxy go and vote for your lodge on your behalf. This year, no proxy forms were sent to all the lodges. So in other words, if you didn't write down who your proxy was going to be, they can't vote if you can't be there. So everyone who needs to vote needs to be there in person, no excuses, no doctor's notes, nothing. Your proxy can't be selected.
What about the masters who are currently receiving notices of self-expulsion?
Remind me of that detail.
No, I was making a joke.
Seriously, that is like the only way to get out. It seems right now. The second of the three things that have come out recently is normally, even here in Virginia, when we have resolutions being brought to be amended into Masonic law, we have some time. We get those a couple months before our Grand Annual Communication. So that way we get a chance to discuss it in lodge. All the brethren have a chance to look at the new laws that are coming in. So that way when the master can vote on behalf of the lodge, they can vote for or against the new amendments. In an unprecedented move, the Grand Line has said, oh, by the way, you're not going to see them until the day you walk in the door, until minutes before you vote on them. So as was kind of jokingly said, it's like, we're not going to tell you what's in it until we vote on it, until it passes, right?
And good luck sharing any of those out to your lodge to get your brethren's input on it before you vote.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane when you think about all the communication and time to think about the behavioral impacts that go with those things. Though I do have an answer for that one, right? Just get all your officers, your whole lodge, at a Facebook group or something, and just say, look, I'm going to take a picture of it right here, and we're going to discuss it in real time in this Facebook thread, and then you can have that way of getting that control out of the in-presence aspect. That's one.
But didn't Facebook get a bunch of these Masons into trouble to begin with?
Yes.
This whole thing to me is like reminiscent of a bad Dukes of Hazzard episode where like the Grand Master of Arkansas is like Boss Hog and he's like, it's just scheming to do whatever he's got to do to capture the Dukes, right? And I'm just, it's so bad, it's comical. And, the truth be told, I mean, to all the members.
And Bill Hosler is Daisy Dukes, right?
He's got some, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I know. But in all seriousness, listeners of the show, whether you're Masons or just curious or whatever, I just said the Grand Master of Arkansas reminds me of Boss Hog. Like, I can get in trouble for that. But the thing is I don't want to say I don't care or anything, but we're talking about this, and it's just at a point now where this has gotten comical. It's so bad. Nobody's dying over this. Nobody, whatever. But there's like, what do you do? Like when something like this, it's the Titanic going down, but it's funny. It's just ridiculous what's happening.
Yep. But wait, there's more. the last
Get out of town.
the last thing that is kind of screwed up is in Masonry in general, and I know definitely in Virginia, ballots are secret, right? And that you want to make sure that you can cast your vote without repudiation, without any sort of attribution or retribution for which way you vote. But not this time. In Arkansas, they have also said that the ballot for the Grand Line officers will not be a voice vote. It will be a named open ballot. So every person identified on who they vote for. So what that behavioral thing is going to stop is instead of saying, hey, I want Juan to be the new Grandmaster. Well, now the Grand Line, who is in cahoots with the sitting guy, they're all going to want to know by name who voted for Juan and who voted for their boys, right? So it's an old boys network versus anyone who's trying to uproot said old boys network. And so even if, let's just say, you know, their old boy network continues, now they know everyone who voted for Juan, and that's going to be a lot of trouble for the next year or next few years if they ever try to cause any trouble again.
The inherent problem with this is, like, let's just say the sitting line of the quote unquote good old boys are sitting there. What if they're just fantastic dudes? What if they've got all the answers? It doesn't excuse this behavior.
We're not jerks. You're jerks.
I mean, what?
Yes.
I'm just glad to be an Illinois Mason right now.
So really, if you think about it, I'm not a big, nerdy guy as far as jurisprudence goes. I know if Nick were here, he'd be going up and down on the laws and all the changes that go with that. But you can definitely see where they're trying to skew it in a certain way. And then how can the craft as a whole try to go against that, right? Where are the checks and balances, right? How do you prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future? So I think
Grand Lodge, stop suggesting it. You're gonna get people wild up.
it's crazy. So I mean, HODAP really has a very pessimistic view of how this is going to turn out. We'll find out in February, just a few short weeks away. So
it's funny, right? Like, I haven't seen like tampering with voting results this bad since the Northern Masonic Jurisdiction Survey.
Hey,
let's change the questions while people are taking it,
and make the questions such that do you like Donald Trump or do you like clubbing baby seals? Your pick. It's purely your choice.
Ugh.
There you go. Moving along, let's go over to everyone's favorite Masonic trivia question. That is the Masonic Monday question.
On Tuesday.
With no sound effects.
What?
The mixer failed. Jason, take it away.
Sad. That's like my best part of the night. Anyway, filling in for Nick Johnson. Last week's question was a doozy, but congratulations to William Nair, Chris Boyce, Mark Robbins, Art Ingersoll, Willem Coulson, Caleb W. Haynes, Mike Hambrecht, and Herbert Longhurst. The answer was Templars Order of the American Star, Free and Accepted Americans, founded by William Patton in New York City. So your Masonic Monday question on Tuesday for the week of January 2nd, 2017 is, Henry Andrew Franken left this indelible mark on hot grade masonry. I know I butchered that pronunciation. In many ways, including establishing the first Lodge of Perfection in this U.S. city. Where was this Lodge of Perfection founded? What was its name? And what was the date on its patent? And your bonus question is, this was actually the second hot grade masonry, or the hot grade lodge, the second hot grade lodge in North America. Where was the first one founded? And what treaty played a primary role in this Lodge of Perfection's demise? When you have the answer, send it to the Masonic Roundtable at gmail.com, except don't, because Nick doesn't monitor that address. Send it to Masonic Monday at gmail.com instead, and it'll get to them. Don't forget to include your lodge name and number and the hashtag Fantastic Beasts. Fantastic? Yeah. Back to you, John.
Thanks, Jason. Let's go right into this week's topic, which is on the Anti-Masonic Party. Now, we covered the Morgan Affair, which is the precursor to this anti-Masonic movement. So tonight we're going to talk about both a little bit of the movement itself, which happened after the Morgan Affair, and then the formation of the Anti-Masonic Party, the first official third party in the United States. So Jason did the yeoman's work of laying out a timeline. So I'm going to let him lead the way, and we will interject as appropriate. Take it away, Jason.
Okay, great, John. So the thing you have to understand here with this period of anti-Masonic sentiment, there have been a couple periods in American history of really big periods really of anti-Masonic sentiment. And the 1830s was one big period. 1880s was another big period, at least in American society. And with the 1830s, a lot of folks were reacting to the Morgan Affair, which we talked about on a previous episode. Of course, in 1826, William Morgan disappeared from Batavia, New York. We're still not sure what in the world happened to him, whether he, got paid money to go to Canada, or we killed him, or he died somehow. We don't know for sure, although RJ's been reading Mackey's revised history of Freemasonry and mentioned that there's some really cool things in there regarding the Morgan Affair. Yeah, that's probably. Oh, go ahead, RJ.
Just for reference, I mean, if anybody wants to grab this book, so if you pick up Mackey's Revised History of Freemasonry by Robert Ingham Clegg, in Volume 7, which encompasses pages 2039 to 2376, you'll find a pretty decent account of just about everything you might want to know, anecdotally as well as factually, from page 2040 to about 2055, when they actually go into the Anti-Masonic Party, because it is an intimate shove into the Anti-Masonic Party. That is the Morgan Affair. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. It's good context. So we have the disappearance of William Morgan back in 1826. A whole episode on that was a great one. Recommend you check it out. Starting after that in 1826 and really in 1827, remember we're in Western New York. Anti-Masonic sentiment is on the rise, really both in religious and political circles. There were a lot of lawyers and a lot of members of the social elite who were Freemasons, and that became an attractive target for those both, in religious circles and others. So in 1827, actually plans were being laid for a national anti-Masonic organization. And one of the main organizers of this anti-Masonic organization was a man by the name of Thurlow Weed. His portrait is on the picture for the episode. And he actually eventually became, one of the New York bosses of the Whig Party, which was kind of the precursor to, or is kind of the main party in opposition to the Democrats later on. And Thurlow Weed was very successful as an editor for several journals, to include the Anti-Masonic Inquirer out of Rochester, New York, and then also the Albany Evening Journal, which was the largest anti-Masonic newspaper that's ever been in existence. He even outdid Jack Chick with his anti-Masonry.
That was one thing I was going to add here. Was I was looking up, so I was like, I got to see if I can find a copy of like one of these anti-Masonic Inquirers. I mean, that is a clearly biased magazine. Let's go see what's in there, and let's read a quick excerpt of some of the type of articles you'll read in there. The title is "Died in a Fit," a case which has been recently stated, which is worth repeating. In about 20 years ago, one blank applied for the lodge to be initiated into the wonderful secrets of Masonry. He was a stout, healthy man and was an Irishman by birth. He went into the lodge in perfect health and was brought home in a corpse. The Mason said he
He was
died.
brought home in a corpse.
He brought home a corpse. Sorry. Mason said he died suddenly in a fit. Masons are all honorable men. Washington was a Mason. Lafayette was a Mason. So
It's like your classic. What was the one magazine, the Inquirer, the one with Bat Boy?
Weekly World News. I loved
Weekly
that.
World News. It was like the Weekly World News of Freemasonry.
I mean, this thing was around for like 4 or 5 years, and it just amazes me that people bought.
Yeah, and so of course, when we know as well as anyone, the fake news, the tabloid machine gets rolling, it just increases sentiment one way or the other, exponentially. So this was kicking off in late 1826, early 1827. Interestingly enough, I read where a lot of the Anti-Masonic Party was founded as a way to subvert Andrew Jackson, because the president at the time was John Quincy Adams, and the Adams supporters were part of a really, really weak political organization. Folks were worried about Adams losing the re-election. So Thurlow Weed and several other folks decided to turn the anti-Masonic sentiment against the Jacksonian Democrats, because Jackson himself, being a very out and proud Mason and speaking highly about Freemasonry in public on several occasions. So Thurlow Weed and others actually designed the Anti-Masonic Party as a way to split Jackson's support base, to kind of use the anti-Masonic sentiment, both again on religious and political grounds, against Jackson to ensure that John Quincy Adams won re-election. Of course, we know he did not. Interestingly enough, Henry Clay, who was then the Secretary of State under John Quincy Adams, was approached to be the lead of this new anti-Masonic party, provided he renounces Masonic membership, which of course he refused to do. So this party gets its start in the late 1820s, and by 1828 it has a showing in its first elections. Now remember, at this point it's really just confined to New York. So the main race is the gubernatorial race for governor, and the Anti-Masonic Party actually shows strong support despite losing the New York governor's race. Now, a lot of folks, take heed to that and say, "Wow, these guys are actually, here to play." And the Anti-Masonic Party gains a lot of support out of that, to the point where by 1830 the party had spread to Vermont and Pennsylvania, and Vermont Anti-Masonic Party member William Palmer was elected governor, I believe, in 1830, and that's actually the highest office to which any member of the Anti-Masonic Party was ever elected, at least officially on the ticket. So in 1831, the Anti-Masonic Party conducted its first presidential nominating convention to put forward a candidate for president, or a nominee for president, for the 1832 elections, and they nominated William Wirt, who was a former Freemason. We say former Freemason. He only got the first 2 degrees, at least from what I was able to read. So he was just a fellow craft. What's up?
I found some more information, so I dusted off. He said he only got the first 2 degrees. I'm reading off the History of Freemasonry in Virginia.
Such a good book.
A book I keep coming back to. There's a lot of good and bad Masons that came out of Virginia. But there was a footnote on that quote where he publicly said, "Hey, I only got the first 2 degrees, so, hey, I can't be that bad." But yet, we find out in a lodge record in Stevensburg Lodge number 39 in Culpeper County, that all the way back in 1798. So this is like 33 years before he got the nomination. 33 conspiracy. He had actually attended lodge in Stevensburg Lodge number 39. So he had to be a Master Mason at that point.
Right, because that was after the convention of 1834?
No, it was before then.
Okay.
But we do have record that he was a Master Mason that sat in a Master Mason's lodge then. So...
okay. Does it specifically state he was a Master Mason? Because I thought it wasn't until after the convention.
Well,
I'll shut up.
After the convention, it was universally accepted. But
Okay.
every state was doing their own thing. So I don't know. I don't remember if Virginia had the thing, but I love the quote in the footnote. It says, "We have no doubt that he was the William Wirt in question." So he's lying already to say, well, it was only a fellowcraft, when we have a lodge record that he was in attendance.
A politician lying, get out.
I'm glad you're sitting down.
Get out.
And then to build on that, if I may, Jason,
Go ahead.
another thing I found interesting was he never, as even being a nominee for the Anti-Masonic Party, he never really bashed the Masons in any way. One of the good quotes was, he said, I was initiated. He says he never took the master's degree. But in that same quote, he said, hey, there was nothing that I saw that was anything criminal or anything that placed its members in the slightest degree of collision with their allegiance to their country and its laws. I've repeatedly said that I consider Masonry as having nothing to do with politics, and nothing has surprised me more than to see it blown into consequence, meaning the whole anti-Masonic movement.
Yeah, I'm going to profit politically from that blowing out of proportion.
Yeah. Dude, it was a weird dynamic, right? I mean, he's got nothing against it, and yet here he is saying, sure, no problem, I'll take this up. The whole idea being that we occupy places of high power and high society and elitism and all these things. That this is happening in Britain now.
Exactly.
But just bizarre, I guess.
So he gets the nomination. What happens next, Jason?
So they go to the elections in 1832, and as you know, or perhaps don't know from the history books, William Wirt did not win the race for presidency. However, and rather surprisingly, he won almost 8% of the popular vote, to include 7 electoral votes from Vermont.
That's better than Gary Johnson or Jill Stein
Yes, it is.
combined.
It's better than Ron Paul, too. Wow. So, anti-Masonic ticket. Maybe we should bring that back. and put forward a Mason for...
What if it was just a ploy to get a Freemason? No, because that wouldn't have worked either. I don't know. I just don't see a logical reason for it.
Well, remember, they're trying to split support from Andrew Jackson,
Right.
who was a Freemason. So it doesn't make sense that
Former
it'd be a
guy.
subversive ploy to put a different Freemason into the White House.
So actually, this brings up a good point when you're talking politics and kind of the recent election here in the United States. Is really the whole point of this party. I mean, if you go to even their Wikipedia page, there isn't much about their platform. It's to just take votes away from the other two. That was really the whole intent.
The party was formed to try to ensure that Andrew Jackson would not win the election. And anti-masonry was a convenient scapegoat. Where have we heard this before?
It's crazy.
Proofs of a conspiracy.
That's like, for example, this is a horrible example, but I'm going to run with it. It's like if someone just said, I'm going to create the Facebook party. Everybody knows Facebook, right? Facebook. So I don't like Democrat, Republican. I like Facebook. So I'm going to vote for the Facebook party, right?
Whoa.
No. I'm going to vote for the non-GMO party because everybody hates GMOs.
There you go.
You guys are forgetting about the elephant in the room here, which is Andrew WK, who formed the Pizza Party. and
He's awesome.
it got enough government support. They had enough votes to actually form the party or the signatures. Yeah, everybody loves a pizza party. Everybody loves a pizza party.
Moving along.
Moving along, Andrew WK will factor into this story no more.
Bummer.
So obviously the Anti-Masonic Party, again, the first major third-party organization in the United States, has a pretty decent showing in its first elections. Actually, at this point, this is close to one of the best showings a third party's ever had in a presidential election. And someone's going to call me out on that later, but that's okay. As not being the case. So gearing up for the next presidential election 3 years later, in 1835, the Anti-Masonic State Convention of Pennsylvania convened to nominate a presidential candidate, and they nominated William Henry Harrison. Well, and that was in late 1835. A couple months later, in February of 1836, Vermont did the same thing. However, the history books say some interesting stuff. They were not able to obtain assurances from William Henry Harrison that he was not a Mason. So they said, you know, we're not going to put anyone forward. We have to hold a national convention. And that convened in May of that year, 1836. And again, they failed to put forward a candidate at all because William Henry Harrison refused to give them assurances that he was not, in fact, a Mason. So what did he do? He ran on the Whig ticket and lost to Martin Van Buren, and then, you know, won 4 years later. And of course, we're going to, you know, declare victory and never speak of this again. He was hailed as a success for the Anti-Masonic Party because they had originally put his name forward.
We wanted him. He didn't like us, and he still won anyway.
Exactly. We win, right?
That kind of sounds like some recent events also.
Popular vote.
They didn't have Russia to hack their elections, though.
Hack.
You're a hack. Anyway, so this, you know, throwing us forward another 2 years at this point to 1838, they had the third Anti-Masonic National Convention. The Anti-Masonic Party at this point was mostly supplanted by Whigs, and William Henry Harrison was nominated unanimously. The Whig part, now he was nominated with running mate Daniel Webster. However, the Whig Party also nominated William Henry Harrison as president, but with a different running mate. And I'm blanking on his name. I think it's John Tyler. It's going to kill me. Anyway, can't remember his running mate. But at that point, the Anti-Masonic Party did not put up a fight for the running mate. And at that point, that is pretty well known today as the end of the Anti-Masonic Party, as it was more or less officially absorbed into the Whigs, which ended the first period of the Anti-Masonic Party. So it lasted a little more than 9 years, perhaps. Not really a huge impact per se on the politics of the time, in the sense that they didn't get a lot of folks elected. However, the third party organizations have sprung up because of this precedence quite a bit.
But to go back to one thing you said, was this was the end of the first part of the Masonic Party.
Correct. You should talk about the second part.
Only briefly, because
there's not much information on it.
Yeah, basically they popped back up 1870s and were out of there by the 1880s, and it was largely about from what I'm reading, it's a lot of people buying into the taxel myths. I think a lot of the religious groups around America, Baptists, Methodists, a lot of the churches backed a candidate to point the finger at Masonry as being evil, and we were too elite, and we were occupying stations of high importance within the United States government, and we were keeping common man down. And the gentleman who started that was
John Blanchard.
John Blanchard. Not a really great looking man, just a regular old guy.
All these guys look so old. You figured they'd be Freemasons at least today. No, interestingly enough, going back to the introduction I gave, I said, there have been two really big periods of anti-Masonic sentiment. First in the 1830s, second in the 1880s, early 1880s. So it's interesting to me that these great periods of Masonic sentiment coincided with the formation and resurgence of official anti-Masonic political parties.
Now, one thing to put a bow on this thing, so it was kind of the first large third party of the United States. And one thing I think was really interesting of its historical legacy and its mark on the democratic process in the United States is that in 1831, the anti-Masons, they were the first to hold a national nominating convention of any party and issued the first written party platform. Of course, their platform was, "We don't like Masons." But,
It's baby steps.
It's statements of ideas, right? A manifesto. And so the other parties started adopting that the next presidential election. So they never had a national convention. They didn't have a process to nominate, and they didn't have a statement of their platform. So there you go. The anti-Masons were the first ones to establish this as a common practice that we still have today.
And that's interesting. And that's, as far as I can see, that's the main lasting impact that this political party had. The national convention as a process whereby the major parties nominate their presidential candidates.
Well, I'll have to say that is one of the lasting, ripple effects from this thing. But we are still suffering from the aftermath of what happened here. Like they organized a political party around an idea to go against Masons, and it really affected the fraternity. A lot of Grand Lodges and lodges suffered tremendous. It was on the thousands of lodges that disappeared because of the animosity that the public now had against Masonry. It's almost like it validated the animosity towards Freemasonry. So who knows where Masonry would be today if this had not come about.
Yeah, it was like the statistics I was sharing with John that came out of this book just before the show. Just in New York alone, the statistics were...
there you go.
Yeah, something... oh, you got it. Oh, you plotted it.
Of course I plotted it.
You said you were going to. If you're at home and you're just listening to this, these statistics kind of start off. It says that the number of lodges represented in the Grand Lodge communications in New York, we find that in 1827 there were 228 lodges, and in 1828 there were 130. In 1829 there were 87. You can see this sharp decline that starts happening along with the numbers. It says talking the numbers of the lodge listed in their estimated membership. 1820, 295 lodges, 15,000 members. 1825, 480 lodges, 20,000 members. 1830, 82 lodges. You went from 480 in 1825, 5 years later, 82 lodges, and down to 3,000 members.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's just not like a big jump. Those are lodges closing their doors in what, 5 years?
Yeah, and that's what happened in Illinois. We actually lost our first Grand Lodge because of the Anti-Masonic Party, and basically Masonry went dark for a couple of years here in Illinois.
So this is New York we're talking about, but still, I mean, that was going around nationwide because of the anti-Masonic movement. Lodges were surrendering charters, members were quitting because of the, you're a persona non grata at that point.
Yeah, and just think, I mean, like a whole Grand Lodge, Illinois Grand Lodge shut down completely. There was no Grand Lodge in Illinois for a while. And to Juan's point, I mean, like I said, we're still feeling that effect today. I mean, how many of you out there have somebody who found out you were a Mason and gave you a look or said something to you?
Mhm.
That's a ripple effect of all that.
So if you want to see the charts are posted on the MasonicRoundtable.com for episode 148.
So I ran upstairs real quick to get a reference from probably one of my favorite Masonic history books of all time, The Freemasons by Jasper Ridley, A History of the World's Most Powerful Secret Society. Fantastic book written by a non-Mason. And Jasper's last page in the book is an amazing quote that sums up, I think, a lot of what I see in anti-Masonry that's persisted since the 1830s. He says, "It's easy to see why the Freemasons are chosen for harassment. They are seen as a privileged, wealthy, middle-class group. Like city library companies, that they can be attacked with impunity because they have tended to ignore criticism and do not wish to lower themselves by replying to it." And he goes on, critics have to be careful about whom they criticize, and he lists a bunch of groups that say, these folks will riot if you criticize them too much. He ends it with, "Is it not time that Freemasons were left alone to hold their dinners and their lodge meetings in peace? For the Freemasons, these meetings are inspiring rituals. For others, they're nothing worse than harmless play acting and silly nonsense. 60 years ago, it was fashionable in British intellectual circles to laugh at and criticize the Jews. Today, in most of Western Europe, the only people who make anti-Semitic jokes are Jews themselves. Anti-Jewish remarks from anyone else are considered to be inappropriate due to the Holocaust. Let us hope that it will not be necessary for 6 million Freemasons to be slaughtered before it becomes unfashionable to denounce them." And so I just see that as a really gripping quote to say, look, I mean, taking a sect of society, whether it's members of a fraternity, members of an ethnic group, and trying to raise havoc at their expense just leads us down some very dark roads. And we've seen that with the rhetoric surrounding the presidential election as well.
Okay, so let's go to any social media we have tonight, Jason.
Yes, we do. Give me 1 second to pull it up. And the best thing we've got from social media tonight is, of course, from our friends at Masonic Memes. It says, "The Anti-Masonic Party, go ahead, throw your vote away."
That really sounds like some of my political friends.
Don't blame me. I voted for Kodos.
This is nice. I just don't want to throw my vote away.
Very cool. Let's wrap it up. Let's go to Juan Sepulveda for his final thoughts.
Well, as I was reading through this, and Jason, I really appreciate you putting together a timeline. I kind of got a little hypnotized there listening and trying to follow along with you. But as I was reading, it just made me think why it happened. Could it happen again? And what could we do? Excuse me. And one of the things that early on in the Winding Stairs, one of the things that I wanted to make sure is that I wanted to understand, why don't we correct people like publicly? Why don't we say, no, that's not what we're about. Let me show you what we do. Because early, I would hear people say, well, for people that don't get it, people that have their own opinions of Masonry, it's not our job to try to change their minds. We do what we do, and that's it. I think that could be a very dangerous way to go about in today's connected society, where any idiot can start a blog, any idiot could, live stream any kind of garbage, and if they sensationalize it enough, they'll gather a substantial number of people behind them. So I think that therein lies the importance of us making public what that we do, not necessarily bragging about how we contribute to society, but at least making things visible, that dispelling some of the myths that are out there. And I think that's what we're doing here in the Masonic Roundtable. We're taking some of the things that people might erroneously think about Freemasonry, and we're shining more light on it. So hopefully these are the things that this is our contribution to avoid something like this happening in the future. So if you have anything that we didn't discuss, if you think, if you have a difference of opinion in some of the observations that we made, we'll love to hear them. Find us on Facebook and continue the conversation there. And to say goodbye, I invite you to go to thewindingstairs.com, and where I've published 3 new episodes. There should be another one this week. And I think that I will continue the rhythm as the months go by. So thewindingstairs.com. Thank you very much, brothers. Thank
you, Juan. Robert Johnson.
So Juan, just want to say great job on the episodes. Loving those. I don't really listen to any other podcasts I don't listen to this one because we're on it. But I listen to Juan's, and I listen to, Greg Kaminsky's and a couple others. So great job with those, Juan. Keep it up. As far as the Anti-Masonic Party goes, I don't know that it would ever become an Anti-Masonic Party, because I think in general, and some people are going to yell at me for saying this, but I would say largely that every political party that exists today is in itself anti-Masonic, in the sense that nobody's telling the truth, nobody's standing up for the actual right things to do, and nobody's admitting when they don't know what to do. They just want to point fingers. And I wrote a piece a few years ago on Midnight Freemasons called "Could a Freemason Be President Today?" And I kind of said no, because I don't think we have what it takes to win today. We're not willing to do what it takes to win, which is to lie, cheat, and steal. And I really do believe that, because I think that is the only way to win a U.S. election today. It is an oligarchy. The Anti-Masonic Party was something and a phenomenon, and thank God it lasted all of a cumulative 14 years or something like that. Again, as a great history of the Morgan affair that leads into the Anti-Masonic Party in Mackey's Revised History. Check it out. If I can find some archive.org parts of that, I'll hyperlink them for the show. Thanks for watching. It was a great episode. I learned a lot. Many thanks to Jason for putting together that timeline. Golf clap from John. Great job. Thanks so much for watching the show and getting your learn on it. It's not always about esoterics. It's not always about history. And sometimes it's about something just kind of really cool that we can talk about historically that happened and how we relate to it today. So thanks very much for watching. And if you like Masonic podcasts, check out Whence Came You Sunday nights at 9:30. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Robert. Jason.
So it's no secret. I really wanted to do this episode because I'm very passionate when it comes to anti-masonry. Those of us on the show are, we have folks troll our Facebook feeds and our YouTube videos on almost a daily basis, spewing anti-Masonic sentiments from political, conspiratorial, and religious aspects. So I felt it was necessary to start delving into some of these threads of anti-Masonry, to just talk about it, open the discussion, so that if you all are ever in a situation where you come up against someone who tells you that you're just out to take over the world, that you worship Satan, sacrifice babies, what have you, that you can at least see where perhaps the disconnect occurred, if they're rational folks. So this and the episode on William Morgan were kind of a step toward delving into more of anti-Masonry and the different threads that it's taken throughout the course of at least American history at this point. So thanks for sticking with us. This was really interesting to me to see how little immediate effect this party had, but to see, again, like Juan mentioned, the rippling effect out that's persisted to today. So it's not a negligible piece of Masonic and American history, and it should be studied, and it should be called out really for what it was, which was the radicalization of public sentiment for political gain. And of course, we've never seen that ever again, have we? Just something to be careful about, because if you can do it with Freemasonry, you can do it with all sorts of other causes, groups of people, ethnicities, and the like. And that's why it's so very important for us to be united as a people, at least in the United States, as we come into the inauguration later this year. I'll get off my soapbox now and say thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you all back next week.
Anti-Masonic Party or not, I'd vote for you. So let's see.
I don't want that job.
How true. Hey, I got to make charts again, so I'm happy. So this was a good one. Robert, where did you get the numbers for this from? Was this in Mackey's revised?
It is, yeah. Mac is revised, volume 7, like page 2050.
Sweet. So, yeah, just reading text in the book is one thing. Seeing it on a graph tells a whole other story, in my opinion. So, either lodges or members, you can see what the impact was. So, I find that fascinating because I'm a nerd, but I think it's definitely a sign of what can happen in 5 short years to a fraternity, what the impact is, and then what the ripple effects are. And this, of course, my charts end right up to the Civil War. So you can see that the Masonry was growing back and then actually exceeding where it started from, right up to the Civil War, which we have a lot of good data on brothers in the Civil War. Maybe it's a good episode topic. So with that, I enjoyed this. I learned a lot. Thank you, Jason, for putting it together, and have a good week. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.